I called a special meeting of the Ames City Council for Tuesday, February 6th to order. Welcome, everybody. And look forward to hearing some reports tonight from a variety of departments. So we're going to start off with library services. Sheila?
All right. Well, thank you. I'm Sheila Schofer, the director of the Ames Public Library, and with me is Bree Anderson, our youth services manager. But I want to start out tonight to take a moment and to thank the City Council and our city leadership for the opportunity to discuss the budget and the impact that funding has on the Ames community. Libraries are a key component in providing critical information, resources, and spaces for learning and connecting not only to the world of ideas, but to fellow community members. Your commitment and support helps make this happen. And we as library staff and community members ourselves greatly appreciate it. So thank you. The library budget pages begin on page 182. And the library uses its strategic plan, created with input from stakeholders and residents, to focus our ongoing work in the areas of equity, inclusion, civic engagement, access, wellness, and staff development. This has guided us in doing thoughtful, challenging, and impactful work. Staff-led teams focused on DEI, accessibility, collections, and staff training, and ensures that our strategic goals are embedded in all the work we do, from more accessible spaces to intentional programming with community partners. We're in the process of developing our next plan. A new survey has gone out to thousands of community members and organizations. We're in the process of planning and scheduling community engagement sessions, and staff will be giving feedback at our upcoming staff day in just a few weeks. So in the blink of an eye, we're on to a next plan. Next up is the library administration pages. Library administration team has responsibility for the overall staffing and operations of the library and includes the key teams of IT, volunteer resources, and building maintenance. Our goal is to provide a safe and inviting space for the 26,000 people who come in every month. To help maintain such a heavily used space, we will be embarking on a replacement carpet project for the youth area this year and the adult area early next year. Designs are being finalized, and we're planning for an install late spring, early summer. Our dedicated staff. As a community-focused department, open 70 hours over 7 days a week, library staff are our single biggest asset, supporting early literacy, technology, robust collections, responsive community programs, and offering a safe, welcoming space. Our dedicated and well-trained staff are absolutely critical to the value we provide our community. After a thoughtful staffing analysis last year, we were grateful to be able to add an additional full-time librarian position in this current budget year. We commit to supporting our staff through professional development, bringing in speakers, utilizing online training, and attending conferences. You'll see in the photo that's staff, that's our person in charge team. They've done, we were doing a Narcan training. And the Niche Academy is an online platform where we can add content or we can pull content from other that's already been created. So that's some of our online. We have staff who presented at 3 different sessions at this year's Iowa Library Association. Our volunteers are very special to us at the library. They play a critical role in supporting library service, and we know that we play an important part in their lives by supporting meaningful connection in a way that lets them be valued and active contributors in their community. We had 314 volunteers last year, and that includes over 90 youth volunteers. Bree and I were chatting earlier that Sarah told us we are over 400 already for this year, so those numbers just go up. But our youth volunteers play a valuable role in our ability to offer summer meals. So we have college interns, and then we have returning youth volunteers who mentor younger youth and build valuable leadership skills. And you can see the crowd in the picture on the right, as many families attend a morning story time or a special program and then stay for lunch. In summer of 2023, we've served 4,486 meals. The library is a meeting and gathering space, and our meeting rooms are key resources for community members to book spaces for their clubs and meetings, but also for library programs and events with various city departments and other community partners. The photo on the left is from a recent mental health first aid program, a program that aligns well with City Council goals and was offered in collaboration with city and community partners. The photo on the right is one of our many conversation circles. Currently, we're offering that in English, Spanish, German, Russian, and French. Also under library administration is the IT team, who will help us keep pace with the changing community needs. We conduct regularly scheduled maintenance and upgrades on our wide-ranging technology. And this year, we're updating our security cameras and software. Next up in your pages is our resource services. That's the team who are responsible for all things collections. They make sure that our diverse community has easy access to responsive collections, not just catalog materials in a variety of formats, be it our new physical books, special youth kits, or our downloadable ebooks, audio, and videos. While print is absolutely not going away, downloadable content, and particularly e-audio, continues to increase in popularity. Our resource services team also works on reaching new audiences. Our community relations team has tried a new approaches, including video recorded book talks done in collaborations with the city's media team that air on Ames television. So there's some captures from that. And then we're able to reuse little sound bites or little clips of that and promote it on social media too. And we also try to reach other outlets. One ongoing one is content for the Iowa State University's international students and scholars who do a regular newsletter. The community relations team also worked on the marketing and graphics for a year-round adult reading program, 12 to Try, that encourages people to read outside their usual picks. So there's prompts each month, and we highlight those you'll see some of the books below, that these are just some of the reading recommendations that we're able to highlight on our webpage and in our catalog through what we call library or book showcases. So you can create a record set and highlight those books. So we use that heavily with our 12 to Try. This coming year, we'll also be looking at adding an email journey. These are periodic emails for new card holders to highlight services and resources available. Pass it over to Bree.
So to talk about youth services, this is my passion in the library. Thank you. So the library youth services team extends services to the community in many ways, in the building and outside of the building. Outside, we have our Project Smiles program, which is the picture on the left. We go out to 94 daycares, in-homes, daycare centers, and preschools every month and do a literacy-based story time. And then we bring library materials to them. And each month we do a new story time and bring new materials and take the old back. So, and then we also have partnered with some city departments and stuff. The picture on the right is we've worked with Ames Parks and Rec this year, and we're doing a story time, destination story time out of the Ames ISU Ice Arena. They do a story time, and then there's an ice activity that goes with it to partner and do lots of things with Parks and Rec and stuff too. We also do lots of summer classes and stuff with local organizations throughout town and special programs throughout the school year. The All Aboard for Kids camp, we do that, partner with them. They come in and do a vocational program during the summer. That's for kids in town with autism, and a special camp for them. Boys and Girls Club, ACCC, lots of other community partners too. We also want to be a destination in the library that is a place where people can come and build their social circles, right? And also where their kids can experience a fun environment that is safe for them to be, and that's welcome for everybody. So we're doing that by kind of enhancing our area a little bit. We'll be getting this new play structure this next year. Hopefully in the next couple months, it'll be coming in to replace the current structure that has some safety issues that we're looking to replace. So very much a place to encourage kids to have creative play, work out together, and have parents a destination place where they can come meet with other parents and build relationships. We also try to reach digitally as well as the physical things we have. So we do have a lot of databases and online things that are specifically for our youngest patrons. Bookflix is a really awesome program. Kids are familiar with it at school, so they know how to run it, but now they're able to access it outside of school and when they're not on their school devices and stuff, so from home and stuff. So it's a place where you can read nonfiction and fiction books that will read to you, or you can read yourself, and there's a lot of engaging things with it. Little Pim is one where you can learn languages. So we have Mango Languages for adults, and then Little Pim is the child version. So you can you can even learn pirate if you want to learn how to speak pirate. There's all kinds of languages and stuff on there. So BrainFuse is also a really cool one. That's a homework help kind of place. And so if kids have a paper that they've written, they can upload it there, and then BrainFuse will have people who can go through and edit it and then talk with them and work with them on how to change things. Or if they're struggling in math, they can get on with an online tutor and work directly over, they can upload a problem that they're trying to work through, and the online tutors will help them 24/7 be able to access things. We also love partnering with area schools and area agencies and stuff. So not only does that benefit our patrons, but also benefits who we're partnering with. The photo on the left is Team Photon from the Ames High School, their robotics club, one of them. So they came in and presented their robots that they're using in competition this year, and let kids come in and like play with the robotic systems and try things out, and had a couple stations. And I don't know who enjoyed it more, the kids who came or the actual high schoolers that got to present to the kids. So definitely a learning opportunity for them too. And then our Battle of the Books, that draws in over 11 area schools from around Ames and surrounding counties. They all form teams and come, and they read from books that we have put out on a list and come to a trivia competition about it. So it's a super great way to engage people to library that might not otherwise come. Our teen space is a dedicated area just for those in 6th through 12th grade. It's super great to have a place where teens can come where it is just for them, right? They have a place where they can be safe and meet with other teens or meet with our librarians who are there, and not worry about their younger siblings tagging along or parents looking over their shoulders and things like that. So the video games are super popular. As you can see, some kids playing there and stuff like that. Our teen advisory group, that's their Halloween picture. They're a group of teens that volunteer their time every month to come in and help plan programs and run. They vote on a chair and chair-elect, and they run a whole system and learn leadership skills along the way. Moving on to the adult services, one of the coolest things that has just recently started is the Idea Center. You guys all should have a brochure of that here too. And that is something that just opened in early December, and you can sign up for a time and come in and digitize some of your memories, whether that be slides or photos, taking VHS and converting it to a digital format. We are definitely in a world where a lot of that technology and stuff is obsolete. And so a lot of people have VHS tapes and stuff like that and don't know what to do with them. And this is a way to, in a free place, be able to come in and work through some of that. Also in the adult is mentioned before, Repair Cafe. That was just a program that we had last couple weekends ago, working with some ISU, and lots of volunteers around the community come in, and it's a place to recycle things that are broken and can be fixed, and instead of buying new and throwing things away. We're also trying to update and reach maybe a younger adult demographic in a lot of our programming that we're doing now. Speed friending is one. It is hard to make friends as an adult. And so come, and you can come to a program where everybody's in the same boat and everybody's open to building that community. So we're doing that. That just happened last weekend as well. We also want to be a place that we can connect people who use the library with the resources that they need. So we have a lot of social services that actually have office hours at the library. So Access, Bridge Home, Community and Family Resources, they will come in and have office hours where people in the community who can get to the library because we're on a bus route or we're open more hours or things like that have access to us they can come and meet with them there at the library to go other places. We've also started to try to reach out to some of those places. So we've got a grant to purchase a bunch of books and expand our deposit collections. So we're now going out to Bridge Home and Mary Greeley Behavioral Health Unit and YSS Rosedale and some of those other places that we don't currently have resources. We've started up some of those deposit collections as well.
Okay, I think we're back to me. So we can turn next to customer account services. And that's the team that you'll see at the welcome desk. And they are the first line of welcome. In support of the library's access, equity, and inclusion goals, they continue to be the lead in translating information about library services. So, see some of those translations. They're also at the center of all the moving pieces that connect our customers to the materials they want. So from holds to shelving to setting up new library accounts. Nearly 1 million items were checked out last year, and that's an average of about 2,700 items a day. But it's beyond books. The customer account services team supports the checkout of more than just books with adventure passes, park packs, Wi-Fi hotspots, STEM kits, and more. At our bookmobile, drivers help take our services out into the community through regular weekly stops in different neighborhoods, as well as special events like the Farmers Market, National Night Out, Juneteenth Community Celebration. They tried a new schedule this past summer that allowed us some more flexibility to go to places like parks, summer school, and camp. So they were just a little more flexible to hit those things that popped up, which worked out really well. But all these incredibly engaging and responsive services are designed, planned, executed by talented and dedicated staff with the support of our generous volunteers. And in the service industry, your staff are your service and are just as critical, if not more so, than our physical space and our collections and materials. So that's a shot from us at our staff day. So we try to take a picture each staff day. So thank you. That's what we have. If you have questions.
Questions?
So,
Go ahead, Gloria.
Sheila, in the past, we've heard that the Ames Public Library was among the top libraries in the nation for circulation per capita. Do you know where we are these days with regard to that?
I don't off the top of my head. That's something I could, we could pull that stat together for you and bring it back to you, though.
It used to be very interesting to see how high up we were in circulation, but now as we've gotten more electronic things, I have no clue where we are.
And we did just, we do submit, we call it IUPLA. It's the Iowa Urban Public Library Association. So it's the bigger libraries in Iowa. And we do share stats. And we just checked in because we had shared some of those stats back. And then someone, actually a colleague at Cedar Rapids, compiles them. And sometimes we can benchmark ourselves against other of the bigger libraries in Iowa. So we should be getting that back pretty soon too. So I'm sure to share those.
This is a great presentation and really appreciate your partnership with the schools and the pre-literacy or the preschool and things, literacy efforts are really terrific. I was just curious, these numbers are really encouraging. I mean, they're definitely on an upward momentum. Are we back to pre-COVID numbers, would you say?
In a lot of ways, yes. I think things shifted a little bit and how people use are a little different. And honestly, even how we program. So we probably won't do some of these humongous ones. Like we did things where every room in the library was taken over. And so I think it gave us a little space to kind of like better utilize our staff resources. So there might be some, it might not be exactly the same because some of those really big ones, we're not going to repeat those as heavily.
Okay. Well, thanks. Very encouraging program.
Other questions? Got a couple quick questions for you. You said you served 4,486 meals. So is that, if someone is there, is that once per day or is that a couple meals per day or?
That's, we set up a lunch service. Sometimes we do
just
have.
Lunch, right?
Yes. There are sometimes where there's like baggies of like crudité or our sun butter sandwiches that sometimes are available for our teens a little bit later. So we do keep some of that on hand for the
if
hungry
there's
teens in the
leftovers or
afternoon.
Something we'll give it to hungry teens in the afternoon, but mainly it's a Monday through Friday lunch program.
Yes.
Electronic downloads, Can you explain a little bit how we're educating the public in terms of what's available? I was not aware. I knew there was a couple of them, but I didn't know you had 4. Is that something that is being? How do you promote that in terms of?
So beyond just the digital books and audio, so there's that, and we do have some brochures that kind of step you through that, and some like tutorials online, just how to. And our staff help people set up those like Libby app and things like that. But as far as those specialty ones like BookFlix or
The
Brain
language.
Fuse,
Yeah.
I think that's what you mean. We try to highlight some of those in every month of our page 1, and we have some nice like little square graphics that go on all our social media. So we work those in. So probably every other social media post is usually about a resource too, because it's kind of mix it up with promoting events, having great pictures of people using the library, and highlighting those resources.
And this Brain Fuse is really intriguing too. So is that new, or is that something you've had for a while?
Nope, we've had that, and the state actually supports that one, which is great. And it's nice because parents will often ask like, or inquire about, do you have a tutoring program? And we have a partnership with Raising Leaders, so we do have a sort of a reading enhancement one, but it's not quite tutoring if you need help with math homework. But we're able to refer to this one and kind of explain it to people because it really is a great resource.
There's like practice ACT and SAT tests on there and stuff. We give practice. We give that a lot to high schoolers when they're working through things. And they also have adult research, like there's adult parts in there too, where you can like upload a resume and get help with it and stuff too. And the job now function too.
They actually have one called Vet Now that's geared to supporting veterans
Wow.
with some of those things too.
So is that used a lot?
I don't know our data offhand, but it's a popular one. I'd say it's among the more popular ones.
Yeah, it's among the most popular. I feel like it's always a discoverable thing, right? Like the more we can get the word out, the more we can talk about it, the more
Yeah.
people will use it, kind of a thing. So, we're just constantly trying to talk about it and build momentum to do it. So it is one of our more popular ones.
They're a good one too. With they'll have some ready graphics for you at different times. So they'll do a big back to school one, so we can just take their graphics. They kind of do some of the work for you, and then you push it out in a creative way. And right after there's been a more marketing push, you'll see those numbers go up.
And then I appreciate your helping provide a connection with the Bridge Home and other asset agencies. How are you making that work in terms of, like, we have a lot of asset, or the council, a lot of asset agencies that they are supportive of, and there's some new partnerships that are developing. So you have a private space that people can meet in, or how does that all
Yep.
work?
So we try to have regular hours so people know like they can come Tuesday, and that helps that kind of that distinct time in day. And then they have they use our our study rooms, which are pretty visible. It's not like a tucked away meeting room, and they walk the floor. So they know who some of their clients are and people who they're kind of building up, like, yep, we're working on this. And so then they see them in the space and work with them.
It's great too, because the more they're in our space, the more we get to know them. And so then the more we interact with patrons who might need their services, we're able to say, oh, hey, this person will be here tomorrow at this time.
Yeah.
Like, here's the information, come and meet with them and connect.
I honestly never thought about the fact that you can be a tremendous vehicle through which it's a safe space. It seems you're going in and no one knows why you may be going in, so to speak. But if you need help with certain areas, in your life, you can go ahead and meet with individuals. So I just, wow, that's really cool. And last, for those of us who are in my generation, this is awesome.
Mhm.
And I'll just book all the hours. And for those who don't know what a VHS recorder is, I'll show you that, and also micro cassettes and a cassette tape. But this is really cool. This is really cool. I'm sure you guys can be very popular because a lot of us do have stuff that we don't want to necessarily lose. So anyway.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a great resource. I also love hearing that people can learn to talk pirate. I have taught an honor seminar on that, and I know there are honor students at Iowa State. Is it limited only to younger children?
No, so actually the Mango Languages is the adult version and Pirates on that as well. So
I'll
yeah,
have to be checking that out.
there you go.
Just don't use it during council meetings. That's awesome.
I'll be careful
I knew
there.
it. I knew it was something. All right. Well, we're just proud of the library. We thank you for all you're doing, and it's just amazing to hear the reports and all the cool stuff you're doing. So, with
Well, thank you. And thank you for your continued support.
you bet.
It really
All
makes an
right.
impact.
All right, we'll move on to Mr. Dunn, utilities programs.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. As always, it's my privilege to present to you our proposed operating budget for the Water and Pollution Control Department for the coming fiscal year. I would like to start by acknowledging and complimenting the leadership team of the department. These are the folks who not only prepared the budget request, they're the ones that day to day are implementing it and tracking it. So most of them are with us this evening. The leadership team at the water plant, Calvin Fort. Calvin is our water plant superintendent. Gary Eshelman is the assistant superintendent at the water plant. Tyler Vermeer is the superintendent at the water pollution control facility. Mark Jones is the assistant superintendent at WPC. Mark's not able to be here tonight. Also not here this evening is Mary Ann Ryan, the laboratory services supervisor. And Jake Sisson is the chief wrangler in the water meter division. So, and on page 34 in the budget book, it lists that we've got 39 FTEs in the department. I would like to note also that depending on the time of the year, we've got between 10 and 13 part-time positions with us as well. So those include student operators, community outreach coordinator, engineering interns, and seasonal labor in each of the treatment plants. So even though they don't show in the FTE count, they are certainly a part of the budget that's being presented to you. So page 86 is the administrative division for the department. This is really split into two primary functional groups. There's the business side of the department and the technical support side. So one of the things that we spend a lot of time doing is tracking legislation, and there's been an onslaught of that in the last year coming from the federal government. Significant rules in the last 12 months that have come out are improvements to the lead and copper rule, new requirements for consumer confidence reporting, new maximum contaminant levels for PFAS chemicals. We've spent a lot of time talking about those over the last couple of years, and also cybersecurity. So also a part of this division is public outreach. So most of our outreach activities are coordinated through this group. There's Rachel rocking the squirt gun with us in the 4th of July parade last summer. And then also administered out of this group are all of the CIP projects that we talked about a few weeks back. And Matt and Daria, our environmental engineers, are also sitting behind us. We introduced them to you a few weeks ago as well. So, the water treatment plant operations on page 88. Dry weather over the last few years has led to new monthly peak demands being set on a pretty consistent basis. Fortunately, while we have seen lower groundwater levels in the wells, we've not been impacted to a point where we've had to seriously consider rationing or asking for water conservation measures. But keeping up with demand is an ongoing priority for us. We not only have to provide new capacity as the community grows, but the wells, as they age over time, their productivity tails off. And at different times, we may have to walk away from wells because of mechanical failures or some sort of perhaps a contamination issue that may appear. So addressing that, we've got the new North River Valley well field that's under construction. You've seen that if you've driven down East 13th Street over the last 6 months or so. It's certainly very visible there. We are working currently to purchase some ground south of Ames for future wells and for areas to protect the groundwater source around where those wells are going to be. And if everything goes as planned, hopefully within the next month, we will have one of those agreements to you to approve for us. And then included in the operating budget is the continual rehabilitation of our wells. So we've got them on a roughly 5-year rehabilitation cycle. So every year, about 20% of the wells are budgeted to be rehabilitated. We've also got a pretty significant focus on strengthening the resilience of the water utility. So projects both in the operating budget and the CIP include those additional wells that I mentioned. We have multiple emergency and standby power projects in the works, and we've got a number of different security related aspects that include upgrades to the plant control system, changes to our security monitoring and access control systems, and continued fencing of some of our remote sites. And lastly, for the treatment plant operations, we can stop referring to it as the new water plant, as there is no longer an old water plant. Demolition of that facility is nearly complete, and I would expect that we'll have completion of that project to you here later this spring. Page 92 is the water pollution control facility. And as you might guess from the magnitude of the project in the CIP, on the operating side, we're spending considerable time preparing for the nutrient reduction project to come. So we've had a really great participation by our staff in that project. They've been participating in design meetings with us, giving input directly to the design professionals. They've been touring other facilities to see this equipment that we're going to ultimately get and have a chance to talk with the people who operate and maintain it in other facilities. And we specifically tasked our consultants with providing training to our staff on the new system that's coming up. So they've had a chance to learn some of the theory behind low DO activated sludge systems. And as we move closer, there's going to be more specific hands-on operational training to come for them. Over the last few years, we've brought to you multiple projects related to the digesters and the methane engines at the facility. Some of those have been just routine maintenance. There have been some projects that have been the result of some damage caused by contractors working in our facility. But in the performance measures on the bottom of page 93, you can see that the on-site electrical generation dropped to 0 as we were working through those projects. But you can see that we're expecting that to come up this year and be back up to our normal next year, which is generating on-site 20% of our electrical demand from the biogas produced in the facility. And I cannot move away from water pollution control without the annual notice that we received from the National Association of Clean Water Agencies, our Platinum 33 Award. So that goes for 33 years of consecutive perfect compliance with our numeric limits and our discharge permit. And the tagline I always use when I talk to tour groups or civic organizations about this is that's the second longest compliance record in the country. And it puts the facility, and even more so the staff that operate it and maintain it, among the very best of the best in the country at what they do. So page 96 is our laboratory services. And again, this is one of the premier environmental labs in the state. They were the first lab certified by the Iowa DNR to be able to report water and wastewater compliance data. So they provide support to both treatment facilities. As we noted in the performance measures, they collected over 1,600 samples last year themselves. A little more than that number were also collected by the staff at the Water Pollution Control Facility. And the lab performed more than 11,000 individual analyte analyses. So they're out in the community every week, multiple times a week, collecting samples from customers' homes of their drinking water. That's to confirm that the water is bacterially safe and that the water chemistry is consistent in the homes with what it was when it left the treatment plant. They're also analyzing all of those samples from the Water Pollution Control Facility that are collected throughout the week to document compliance with our discharge permit. And they're collecting and analyzing samples from industrial customers that discharge to us so that we can confirm that what they're giving us is something that both the nature of it and the quantity of it is something that our facility is able to handle. So they've wrapped up in the last year a year-long study to document water quality in the South Skunk River, specifically as it relates to copper. There was a question the last time the discharge permit was issued for the WPC facility as to whether or not there was a potential for a copper violation or a copper water quality standard exceedance. Our evaluation that we're in the process of submitting to DNR is good news because it documents, in our opinion, that there's no reasonable potential. There is no water quality issue upstream of our facility, and our discharge creates no potential. So that's good news environmentally, and it's also good for us because we could avoid the expense and the time of testing for something that there's no reasonable likelihood of an issue being present. And on page 98 is our metering services program. So this is our cash registers for both water and sewer because folks, most of them are billed for their consumption, both water and sewer, based on a water meter reading. We've talked over the last couple of years about supply chain issues and the challenges that that's posed to us. We thought last fall that things had improved because we received a large shipment of meters, but we are unfortunately sliding back towards long delivery times, long lead times on those meters. So what we're doing is where there's existing meters that are not showing a performance issue, we're allowing those meters to just stay in place. There's not a concern from a customer's perspective because these mechanical types of meters, when they fail, they slow down. There has never been a mechanical meter that's sped up because it got old. They just don't operate that way. We're also looking at newer types of meters like ultrasonic meters that have no moving parts and, at least in theory, are going to have longer service lives. And also as a part of this, this program area is our cross-connection control program. And the purpose of that is to make sure that any contamination that may occur inside a customer's premise cannot find its way back into the distribution system. And so it's looking at all customer classes, residential, commercial, and industrial. And Sean Cole is our cross-connection control coordinator. He also serves as our department representative to the city's development review committee. And he's also leading up the lead service line inventory, which is one of the things that we're required to do under the federal lead and copper rule revisions. And so with that, Mr. Mayor, I will turn it back to you with our thanks and be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, John. Questions?
I have one. And again, thank you for the work that, we get a chance to hear the report about the service record. And it's outstanding. I don't think most people appreciate that. And so congratulations on another year. I have a question. We talked before the meeting tonight about issues of cybersecurity. Let me ask the question just sort of broadly. Do you feel like we're right-sizing the budget in terms of what we're doing for measures on protecting the integrity of our systems? is there a place where you would see an opportunity for us to increase the budget in that? And how would you want us to think about that?
I would say that right now we are probably where we need to be. We obviously lean pretty heavily on the city's information technology work group. They're a significant asset to us in what we're doing. But we've got in the current year CIP multiple $100,000 designated towards various security activities, some cyber, some physical security. We also have in the authorized budget a process control coordinator position. So someone who's going to specialize in that process control of the SCADA systems. And a part of their obligations are going to be helping us keep the systems updated, patched. It's constantly trying a battle to try to keep software patched.
Great. Thank you very much.
Other questions? John, you say that page 95, staff's evaluating wireless lift station and sewer flow monitoring systems. Is that using the AeroNet system or what?
That would not be using the ARANet. That would be a cellular network.
Okay.
We are using the ARANet network for some remote site security cameras, areas that we had wanted cameras in the past, and existing cell technology, you just could not transmit the bandwidth. That high-speed network is working for us.
And is that going to continue, or do you know the ARANet?
I've not heard that it's not.
Okay. Yeah. I know that the grant that the ISU professor got, I think was we get to keep the equipment, or the city gets to keep the equipment, or he gets to keep the equipment. But it's a phenomenal system. And I remember, you refresh my memory, it was a live video
Right.
that you're able to actually monitor people that are getting on it. So when you go out and test water in people's houses, what are the results showing? I'm just curious.
We have, to my knowledge, we've never had a confirmed bacterial positive. The way it works is if we test a home and we get a positive bacterial sample, that's initially, it's called a presumptive positive, and that triggers us to go back and take a repeat sample at that home. And we also, for every one of our sampling locations, we've got designated the first connection upstream and the first connection downstream. So we go back and we test at the location we got the original positive, and upstream and downstream. And if you get positives in that retest, then that's considered a confirmed positive. We've never had that confirmed positive. One of the most common causes of the presumptive positive are cats who get up on the faucet, and if the faucet dribbles a little bit and they're up there licking at the faucet, it's a frequent cause of a presumptive positive.
So there's no cats in the city? Is that what you're saying? Or
The folks that we sample from are pretty good now about understanding what the causes of those could be from.
And then last question. It shows that you have I'm just out of curiosity, you lose water up to 7 to 8.5%. Is that just through leaks through the system, or do you have any idea where that?
It can be a combination of things. It can be leaks. It could be metering errors. The national standard is between 10 and 15%. So we're
Below that?
pretty good in that regard. I remember a few years ago when I looked at some national data, the city of, I believe it was Houston, loses more water in a year than we produce. But it is a challenge.
Wow.
Public Works has actually a pretty aggressive program of doing leak detections to help us identify where those are. We're going after the main breaks. We're looking for customers to repair the service lines that they own. Sometimes it takes a little while working with a customer because service lines aren't cheap to replace them, and sometimes they need a little time to get the planning in place to do that.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, everyone that came. And again, as Tim said, congratulations on 33, Platinum 33. That's remarkable. By the way, who's beating us right now? And how can we get that? No, Who has more than 33?
It's a small utility just outside Washington DC in Virginia.
Oh, Washington DC. I see. Yeah. Uh-huh.
As long as it's not Iowa City, we're in good shape.
No, Washington DC. That's okay. Thank you.
It's like Ankeny. That's right.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As we get started tonight, I again would like to thank the Public Works Division heads, and they're listed up there. I also would like to thank actually all the workers in all of our work groups, because it's with their input that we've developed this budget, and it's through their hard work that we provide the exceptional customer service to the community. So thanks to all the frontline workers as well. As we get started tonight, there's a broad overview of the organizational chart of Public Works. And you can see the 5 divisions that we have: operations, admin, engineering, resource recovery, and traffic. So we'll talk about the work activities in all those 5 divisions tonight. And as with the CIP, before we get started, we'd just like to do a brief recap video to show the activities and the events that we were involved in this last year. So a lot going on there. Some familiar faces in the video also. And I'd like to thank Bill Gebhardt and the Channel 12 staff for putting another great video together for us. Thanks to McKinley for putting the presentation together for us. So we get started tonight in the utilities program. And under that, we have the traditional utility maintenance activities in water mains, sanitary sewers, and storm sewers. That's on pages 102 through 109. Just a couple things to point out. In sanitary sewer, we're starting our first year of an 8-year cycle to replace all of our flow monitors that are in the sewers so we can monitor our system. And then we've had our acoustic testing technology in our sanitary sewer for a couple of years now. You might remember the acronym for that. That's called SL-RAT, the sewer rat. So that's actually sends an acoustic wave through the sewers to detect blockages and things that need to be addressed rather than taking the time to actually physically inspect it or video inspect it. So that saves us a lot of time. And then the IT pipes, that's a software program that utilizes our geographic information system as a base and catalogs and organizes all the video for the sewers. Then next on page 106 is the stormwater permit. So this is our NPDES permit, and that's managed by the engineering division. So the public outreach and public education is a very key component in this activity. And you probably recognize it under the Smart Watershed label. Some of the major activities that we have going on, the Eco Fair, our cost share programs. We go out to elementary schools and exhibit in their science nights. And the background is one of the stream cleanup, a photo from one of the stream cleanup events. Also maintaining our green infrastructure that's growing throughout the community is important. And also we'll be getting underway an Iowa Creek master plan that was recommended by the DNR. Then rounding out utilities, we have resource recovery. That's on page 110. As we talked about with the CIP, and as you see in the background photo, we're very excited to have our one-stop shop recycling drop-off started at the Resource Recovery Center. That's going very well so far. The community seems to be really embracing it and really utilizing it and doing a good job with it too. I believe Bill would say that we've received very little contamination in any one of our separated streams. So good job to the community for embracing that and jumping in with that. Also, other activities for landfill diversion are very important to us. One is the Rummage Rampage. So that's a great event that just keeps growing every year. We're looking forward to that again this year before the fall semester starts at Iowa State. And we also continue to recycle metals within our process at the plant. And as we've discussed before, we'll continue to work with electric services, with the manager's office to look at the future of our solid waste planning for our community and for our partners. So that rounded out the utilities program. Next, we get started in the transportation program. And then you can see listed there all the different work activities that are within the transportation program. So the first is Public Works Admin. So that's basically McKinley and I, but also the admin service team up front. We support that team as well. We also provide division support, work group support throughout all the different work programs and divisions. Grant applications and administration are another important part. And McKinley administers the Ames on the Go app. That's a great outreach tool and input tool with the community, and also our Public Works Facebook page. Next, we have engineering. It's on page 122. So this is the full project development from budgeting through concept, design, construction, also construction inspection for subdivisions and site plan developments, right-of-way management, and I believe the next slide we'll go over is GIS. Also, as I mentioned, engineering manages the stormwater permit activities. And we're fortunate to have two knowledgeable surveyors on staff, so we've been able to expand our in-house survey capabilities. We also, in engineering, handle our pavement management data system. So that's an important tool for developing our CIP. And we have a longstanding partnership with Iowa State on interns and co-ops. So if you know of any Iowa State students that are looking for an internship or a co-op this summer, by all means, please send them our way. Then next we have our geographic information systems. That's on page 124. So that's the citywide GIS, but it's staffed within Public Works. So it provides geospatial data and mapping for many different things. Provides the background for all of our asset management tools. This work group provides a key role whenever we have our incident command center activated. And also it provides the key information for our public outreach. You'll see a little bit later our snow dashboard that people can log in and see where the plow activities have been going on. Our construction map, that interactive map that people look at throughout the construction season, and very important for our public information meetings that we have for projects. Next, we have traffic engineering. That's on page 126. So they do all the studies and modeling for our traffic network, project design for capacity improvements, for shared use path improvements. This is also where we staff the Ames MPO. And some of the major work activities that we have here are completion of the bike ped master plan. I believe Brian sent out a workshop update identifying when we come back for that. And we'll be getting underway with our metropolitan transportation plan. So that's nearly a 2-year effort to develop that. And you may recognize that it used to be called the long range transportation plan. Also, you'll see at council next week requesting approval plans and specifications for phase 3 of our traffic adaptive network. Traffic ops handles the maintenance for signs, signals, and pavement markings. You can see in the background another RAGBRAI picture. So that's one of the special events, a huge special event that we had last year that this work group put a lot of work into, as well as many others. But also just the regular community events that need any type of street closures or traffic control. This group gets involved in that, as well as the Iowa State football games, partnering with Iowa State DPS on crowd management. Now we get into our street system maintenance on page 132, 134, and 136 with our roadway maintenance, our street cleaning, and our snow and ice control. Just an update on snow and ice. Our budget is built on 19 average events every year. And to date, we've had 10 responses that we've been out, 10 storms that we've had to respond to. And 36 inches of snow is what our average is that we plan for. We've got 23 inches to date. Then, as you remember, just last month, we had a very difficult series of storms and weather conditions to respond to. However, our event response ranges from 11.5 to 14.5 hours to handle the entire town. So we're very proud of the work that our crews put in to do that. We have some snow and ice data to show next. The top left is a graph showing our typical salt usage is the red line, a nice smooth line, and then looks bluish is where we're at this year. You can see it took a hard stop there after our January events. And same with the snow accumulation. But if you look at the red line and the date that we're at on salt usage, we typically have about 27% of our salt usage remaining from this date forward into April. And we have about 33% of our snow accumulation lying ahead of us in a typical year. So it's hard to believe with the weather we've had this last week or two, but winter may not be over yet. Parking operations is next on page 148. That's maintenance of our meters, signs, and parking lot surface. We're also involved in special event support in this activity, and we're also doing meter updates. So beginning with this proposed budget in 24-25, we'll start an annual change out of our older regular analog meters to smart meters. So we'll be able to use not only smart cards, but debit cards, credit cards, the app. So many more ways, many more convenient ways to pay at the meters. We'll be, beginning that effort in the 1 and 200 blocks of Main Street. Then we had a great support this last summer with renaming the airport to honor James Herman Banning. So a wonderful event. I'm proud to have his name on our airport. Also, our FBO continues to be Central Iowa Air Service, and hear a lot of good things from our airport users about the services that they provide. So that rounds out our public works activities. So thank you, as always, for the direction and for the support that you provide us throughout the year.
Thanks, John. McKinley. Questions, comments?
Just a general question about how long it may take if we still have meters in all the places that they are right now. What's your projection for how long it will take to replace those, the new ones?
I think it'll probably be 7 or 8 years, I would have to guess. So yeah, it'll be a bit of a slow process, but we'll keep working at it.
Thank you.
John, the water main breaks on page 103, seen an increase in water main breaks. And we appreciate those oftentimes come bitter winter in the middle of the night, and we send our crews out and they're to their waist in water. Should we expect at some point a leveling of the water main breaks as we make repairs and improve the water lines? At some point, will that level off, or because this seems like a lot of water main breaks?
Yeah, I think you're right that as we continue with our water system improvement program, that we should see a decline in that as we make headway to replacing the older mains. But last year was a very unusual year, and I think that's why you're seeing that with the dry weather and the dry soils. That really caused some unusual shifting activity in the soil that we don't typically see, and we had a lot of summer water main breaks that we don't typically get. So if we get some good moisture soaking in the ground with the snow and some spring rains, and hopefully make some headway against the drought, then we won't be experiencing those like we did last year. But it was a very unusual year last year.
Yeah, and we haven't had flood conditions in Ames for a while. Very glad about that. Could you give us just a couple of thoughts on, I know we've been working very diligently. Tracy's been doing a lot of great work on improving Ames in terms of how we handle surface water. And we've got the major changes on South Duff and what's happened there. Could you give us sort of a broad assessment of the community's readiness in terms of a surface water flooding issue?
Sure, we're very ready. As you mentioned, we have done great improvements on the Iowa Creek area in the South Duff neighborhood. That improvement alone, our consultant design team estimated that would lower the 100-year flood effect by 2 feet in that area. But also just the projects that we have in our under our stormwater activity year after year continues to piece by piece make headway towards our stormwater management. Also, WPC has through their nutrient reduction efforts, we'll have projects coming farther upstream in the watershed. I think they have a project identified that's around County Line Road and the Gilbert Blacktop. So it's much farther upstream in the Iowa Creek watershed that will help us as the flood waters make their way down towards Ames.
Yeah. And just a final comment, the Ragbri work was outstanding. The roads were well maintained, ready for our 10,000 friends or 15,000 friends to come join us. And the streets were in terrific condition. And just want to also acknowledge the work that you folks do in terms of our trail maintenance. I think the trails in Ames are in outstanding condition, and they're a great asset for the community, and wanted to acknowledge the good work that your team does.
Yeah, thank you.
John, I'm wondering about Ames on the Go and how it's been working. I noticed that generally speaking, it looks like we're handling more concerns in less time, other than the water distribution system maintenance, which the time on those seems to have, or maybe that's not the right one, storm system maintenance. I don't know, one of the maintenance ones. The time went up, but the number of calls went down. And I'm assuming that's because of the nature of whatever was reported, because you can get those large projects like water main breaks and.
Right. Yeah, that's very true. They can be a very large issue to address. Sometimes they can be very difficult issues to identify or pinpoint the location where the problems are occurring. So yeah, that's kind of inherent with that aspect. And I don't know if McKinley has any comments on generally. You're right; they have been improving, and they were very good to begin with. But they have been improving on response time. You think people are on our staff just getting used to working within the system and responding? Or?
Yeah, it's like replacing sticky notes. So we put a lot of things in there to manage it for us, and then Justin's group, it takes a little bit extra time because they actually go and investigate it before they close it versus closing it and then investigating it outside of that. So I think it still works really well for us. I think there's maybe a few quirks on things to work out, but
in talking with our software vendor that's behind the Ames on the Go, they've told us that we have the shortest response times of all the communities that utilize their service.
Well done.
Other questions?
I just had one about the airport. Can you just explain the difference? It looks like the difference there is due to a fixed rent model versus more like a sharecropping type of model. Is that right? And so this, we see the cost of it, but it looks like that the money we get back from that will change too. Is that right?
Yeah, it may. We have a farm manager that handles that for us, and in staff visiting with the farm manager, he laid out 5 different options or scenarios on how we can work with our tenant farmer. So that was one concept that we had looked at for increasing our farm revenue, was to do a hybrid crop share. But we're continuing to look into that. That may not be the way that we end up going. We more than likely will end up going back to a cash rent model for this coming growing season. But we'll continue to evaluate that in as far as risk and potential revenue increases going forward. So that may be a change that you might see at final amendment after we find out more information.
Okay. Yeah, that was just the biggest percent change of all
Yeah.
the categories that we've talked about, was that 45% increase in expenditures for the airport. So I was just wanted to hear a little bit more about that. Thank you.
Yep, you bet.
Other questions? Well, this isn't necessarily an impact on our current budget, but I just want to recognize Tracy for all the work she's been doing down at the legislature. And she's now joined my club of being utterly frustrated with what goes on when you don't talk. But can you just come for a minute, Tracy, and just got an update on what's transpiring regarding stormwater? And I think council, you need to be aware of what the legislature is doing and how it might have a pretty profound impact on our current regulations and how it might impact future budgets. So if she looks like she's gone through the ringer, she's gone through the ringer. But I want to just thank you for all you've done.
Thank you.
We've talked a lot. She went down, made a formal presentation. Actually, Representative Latham asked specifically for her to come down and present why where we would be opposed to legislation that is being contemplated. So she spent a lot of time putting together PowerPoint and materials. So maybe just comment on mean, it's not been passed yet, but it was passed out of committee today. So I think it's important for you to be aware because this is a big, big deal for the city of Ames.
Yeah, so the legislation that has been proposed, we've been working through this for the past 3 years, but it is going to increase flows off of construction sites, and it's going to impact the amount of topsoil that people will get. And so it will actually increase flows and further degrade our streams. And so we already see a lot of erosion in our streams right towards homes. We actually have 2 projects where we're physically relocating the stream as it is away from these homes that are being eroded towards. So we're going to see this really impact. I saw some amended language. It passed out of local government committee today. They're working through amendments. Looks like even possibly stripping us from being able to have special assessments. It's emotional because I've been through so many floods here and we get the phone calls. So I know the developments do the best they can, but at a price. It's way less expensive for them to do it and incorporate it into their designs. It's the difference of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars for us. So we're going to pay for it.
You comment too, you mentioned that if the regulations get relaxed, the impact that might have on federal funding for projects.
Yeah, even just if we don't have certain things in place, we may not be covered through FEMA or flood insurance reductions will not be at the level that they would be. So there's going to be unintended consequences that are going to happen in our communities.
So Tracy's brought this information to the committee and made them aware of it. Those who are in favor of the bill sold it on or presented as being affordable housing and reducing costs. And I just think it's important for this council to be aware right now that if this passes, it could have a profound effect on our community. We could have future flooding because our system, our underground system, are not designed to handle huge amounts of water flowing off of future developed areas. And also, my understanding is one of the aspects would be is that if like a large parking lot was to be part of a development was to be redone. They do not have to bring it up to current stormwater retention. They can just go ahead and keep it the way it is, even if it is causing a problem. So it's if we didn't have problem with flooding in Ames, it'd still be concerning, but we do have a problem with flooding in Ames. And we've gotten money from the federal government to help fund the Iowa Creek project. That could be I won't say jeopardized, but it could be an issue of trying to get future funding for additional projects as well too. So it's not good news, and but it could affect us in the future for stormwater detention, projects, or maybe we can't do as many projects, or we got to enhance them in order to cover it. And I think you're correct me if I'm wrong, but you said if we wanted additional requirements to be provided on a development, if this passes, the city has to pay for this additional required detention in order to try and protect adjacent properties. So it's something that we don't in any way celebrate, but bemoan because it's additional state legislature affecting local entities that struggle with stormwater and flooding. So,
is there any lobbying effort that's going on among the cities that are most impacted by this? I mean, Cedar Rapids comes to mind immediately because of the problems we've had, Des Moines, or are we all kind of approaching this individually?
So some cities have direct lobbyists and are working through it. Some are going through the Iowa Stormwater Education Partnership, which we're members of, who then are lobbying against it and educating, reaching out. So it's it basically moved today from the House Local Government Committee to the full committee. So there's still an ability to reach out to the House committee, but it's, yeah, not looking as good as the mayor said.
Thanks, Tracy.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks for your work.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think we have any idea how many hours Tracy spent. I'll send her a text and she'll say, yeah, I'm down at the State House again. So, anyway. All right. Any further questions for John or team? Oh, hey, good news. Justin, you got some money coming for us? I think I shared last week that thanks to Justin's hard work in documenting all the costs for the snow removal, we might be getting some refunds, or not some refunds, some help from FEMA, I believe, and that would certainly help our budget if that comes back. So thanks for your efforts, and keep the snow off the streets for the rest of the winter if you could. All right. Thank you, John. Thank you, staff. Appreciate you coming. Corey.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here to talk about fleet and facilities. We'll start with fleet. That's page 262. So this is a picture from this January. As you know, all of our snowplow trucks now use B100. So even when it was negative 30 degrees, we were using B100. So fleet operations, maintenance. I'm just go through a few numbers for you, but as you know, since you've all been on council for a while, we run somewhat like a business, but we do have some quirks compared to traditional auto mechanic shop that you would expect. So we do have an hourly rate, which is much lower than you would see in the private sector, but we have administrative fees. So a lot of our bigger items, parts, fuel, and outside maintenance is a pass-through. We don't charge anything on top of those, but we do charge an admin fee, which covers overhead. You can see our hourly rate increased about what you would expect with personnel services. Our admin fee did go up. That was because the last couple of years we have seen a dip in not meeting our goal or not getting that funding. We try to break even. We've come in a little bit under, so we're starting to take our amount down. I think Nancy kind of explained that to you last Friday a little bit. So we did increase that to try to make some money to build that fund back up. One of our biggest expenditures is fuel. We expect that to be flat. So this 315, that assumes usually we run 50% gas and 50% diesel for the city fleet. So that's kind of a hybrid number. Gas obviously would be cheaper and diesel would be a little bit higher than that. We have seen a parts increase that is built into our budget. Do have some issue on parts with supply chain, but not as much as we have in the last couple of years, but we are seeing that increase in prices kind of stay consistent and showing up. So admin, also that's where we spec and purchase all vehicles. You can see in 22, 23, we only had 13. This year already we had 20, and I think we are getting 3 in this week. So we're already at 23. So it is getting better. So this kind of shows fuel trends over the fiscal years. You can see we're not at our historical lows, but we're not at our historical highs. B100 in January, we paid $228. If you remember, we have a special agreement with REG for that we pay the rack price of diesel on the day that we get the B100. So we don't pay any more for B100 than we would diesel. And that's because of our agreement with REG. And this kind of shows the trends over the last couple of years. You can see we kind of had some high peaks, but we're kind of getting down. You can see the last couple of months we've really started to go down too, which is a good sign. Hopefully those numbers will stay lower. as we go throughout this year. So maybe, our estimate might be a little high if that trend continues. This is the overall fuel trends about how much fuel we can use. So you can see one thing you'll notice is the purple is E85 that went way down when we went to the hybrid police vehicles because they were the largest user. You can see B100 going up. That's kind of the brown that starts at 0 and kind of goes up. And then you can see biodiesel goes down, obviously, because we're using more B100. In January, I know we used a lot of B100. So that number will probably change. Our diesel use is dependent on the type of winter. The more snow events and snow we have, the more diesel we're going to use. Where gas is a little bit more consistent, but it's been going down because of the hybrid police vehicles. So this shows the percentage of kind of diesel and B100 that we use. You can see it's increased. We went, that first year was the pilot project of the 5. Now we have 12 units. We do also do some B100 and some of the equipment during the summer when it won't affect the equipment. So maybe skid steers or backhoes. We can use B100 during the summer months in limited capacities that won't hurt the vehicle. But you'll see that percentage probably grow. I think we used 6,000 gallons of B100 in January. So that's going to be a large chunk. Probably our biggest month ever for sure that we've used. So green fleet, we consider 42% of the fleet, and this would be the fleet. When we're talking fleet, this is more like the vehicles where we have the option to really get green. That includes electric, hybrids, includes the B100. Also, if they use E85, which we have in a lot of our pickups. Again, we have 12 snowplow trucks. We've ordered some hybrid smaller trucks, the new Ford Mavericks that will go into service here this year. We have 2 new all-electric trucks on the way. We've talked to a department about getting 1 more already. So that's a good sign. And we have a bid out for our first plug-in hybrid that will maybe be used by a messenger service, a minivan that would be a plug-in hybrid, which would be a great option for them. So the future, as you know, you passed on the climate action plan. So part of that implementation is going to electric. There are increasing choices, and we also use funding. So we earn interest off all of the replacement funding, and we use that for sometimes 1 year, one kind of off projects. You can see here we're going to get a new stationary lift. We bought new lifts in the past, but we also are going to do our second year of putting away $50,000 to help departments buy hybrid or electric vehicles. We anticipate going from a regular gas to a hybrid, it's usually around 5,000. Where an electric could be around 10,000. So we'll continue to do that. We've already used that on some of those vehicles we've talked about purchasing. There's still some challenges. Some vehicles are not as available, like the hybrid police vehicles that we just talked about. Hopefully that changes soon. And you've probably seen the news, electric vehicle production is being cut, especially with the big 3, which is usually where we get our vehicles. So that's good news, bad news. Good news, that means we can probably get electric vehicles because they'll have the production capability that they haven't had the past couple of years. Bad news is it probably costs more, so they'll increase their margins because they don't have the production that they were anticipating. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But there still will be electric. It's just not maybe as fast as we thought it was going to be with some of the other automakers. So that is it for fleet. Be happy
Any
to
questions on fleet before? Go ahead, Carlin.
Yeah, I got one. I can remember one of my first years on city council, I asked how many bicycles we had in the fleet, and I kind of got chuckles as a response. But I do think it's something, and I have no targets in mind, but with especially with electric assist bicycles and cargo capacity on that type of thing, like tricycles with cargo capacity, I guess I'm wondering if we would ever think about that. I know it's kind of a mind shift, right? Because you don't immediately think that that's doable, and it's certainly not for much of what our fleet does, right? So any sort of heavy lifting right now, right? But courier type services, the things where people are just using a car to pop across a short distance, that kind of thing, like anyway, that's my question is have we really ever even dabbled in thinking about bicycles or electric bicycles or tricycles, especially for people who maybe would be uncomfortable on a regular bicycle, as a supplement to our green fleet for short trips or trips that don't require a lot of cargo?
Yeah, I'm not sure that's an appropriate question for Corey because
Sure.
he deals with what the department's asked for. I think it's more of an HR question, what's appropriate for the job. We want to make sure we get the best equipment, the safest equipment. Depends how much they have to carry with them.
Hmm.
It's difficult it just has to do with the climate in the winter and the summer. So it's really something we're not adverse to, but it has to meet the needs of the job. So
Sure.
if that lends itself to perhaps in the future, right now we haven't found one. No, we use police officers are out on bikes.
Sure. Yeah, that's the one department where we've got.
Yeah, so we're out there using them. But we'll just have to look on a
Yeah.
job by job basis to see if it's appropriate and safe.
And that makes sense that it wouldn't be a question for tonight, perhaps. Steve, do you have a recommendation for when a better time to ask that question would be?
You could ask that of HR, but it's something we'd have to look at. Have to look through all the job descriptions and what they do
Right.
and what they carry with them,
Hmm.
how far they have to go.
Yeah, I get it. And I'm going to get it too that
Not
like,
all employees are built to go 40 miles and then get off and
Sure.
So that may have effect who we hire and things like that, which we have to be very careful about.
yeah, potentially. I mean, I think again with electric assists, a lot of that, where it might have once been super taxing, now maybe there's some opportunity there. But again, I get that maybe it's not for tonight, so I'll save that and I'll ask you some other time, Steve, when I can ask that question.
Yeah, but we did have bikes in the fleet, sort of. We partnered with Discover Ames now
Oh,
that
sure.
with the kind of people could check out bikes.
Do they still have those?
I don't believe
I
so.
think so.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
So we did that for a couple of years.
Sure.
Like after COVID, it kind of went away.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Brown, if you want a memo on that, you can, we have council comments tonight. You can, council comments, if you're going to make ask for a memo. So
Okay. Thank you.
anything else?
Corey, we heard a lot about electric vehicles not handling this cold spell very well. And I'm wondering if we see an impact with our hybrid vehicles using more gas during those sub-zero days.
Yeah, you will. Obviously, hybrids and electric, the two biggest issues are going to be really cold and really hot. Really hot's because you're running the air conditioner, and really cold, it's the battery. I think what you saw was some of the kind of people pushing their cars and stuff. That's probably because they just didn't have the infrastructure to plug them in.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we need to be sure of, kind of for city vehicles, that they have if you plug it in, it keeps the battery warm. It helps keep that charge. But you will see your range drop quite a bit when you have the extreme weather. So that's something we'll definitely monitor when we get our electric. Because the two new electric trucks will be kind of our first daily drivers that are all electric. But during, 95% of the year, there won't be as many challenges.
Other questions? On the B100, we're blessed to have REG here in town, and that's below what we would normally pay for it, right? That 228.
So that is exactly the price we would have paid for diesel. In the first iteration of the agreement, we paid less. I think
Okay.
we paid 5 cents less. This is the same price, but it's the rack price of that day. Because we have a bigger tank. So we're, getting deliveries of 6 or 10,000 at a time.
Okay.
So whatever that rack price for diesel is that day, that's what we pay for B100.
So should REG philosophically change how they're approaching things? Would that price go up or not?
Yes.
If it would, it wouldn't be that much.
There's a lot of variations on that. So, but I think it wouldn't be a huge, but it would be an increase.
Because I mean, I think your chart show like 351 is what you're budgeting for
Yeah.
diesel and 228 for B100. I think.
Well, yeah, 228 is what we actually paid in January. Our budget's 315, but usually gas is quite a bit cheaper than diesel. But your B100 would cost more.
Yeah. Okay. I just thinking long term is if they would bid that or would not choose not to bid it,
Yes.
it would just, it might affect some more.
Yes.
That's all. Okay. All right. Facilities.
Facilities. This is page 252, so you got to go backwards. This is predominantly City Hall, but as you know, our key card access is done, but now it's being expanded. So there'll be other buildings that hopefully come online, like the new Fitch Family Aquatic Center. We'll have the same key card access, and Cyride just expanded. The benefit of this is that we can house most of the kind of brains here at City Hall to lower costs for other departments to come online with the system. We're also doing that with the camera system. I'm helping with the Stephen L. Shanker Plaza on construction management. They're still working. This summer, we will get to enjoy it. So paint and carpet at City Hall, as you know, we bid the conference rooms, hallway, and police, new vinyl flooring. So I know they have ordered the material, so we're just waiting to get timeframes. The next phase, probably next winter and spring, will be all the other office areas. That also will include painting. So that'll be a pretty big project because we have to move all the furniture out and back in. And we did complete a remodel in finance, kind of made them move some people and made them a larger conference room and a new office. That I think they like. Hopefully Corey's happy. So future, as you approved, we are doing a new redesign of the HVAC. I'm trying to meet that climate action plan goal so that we'll have a heat pump. Right now, I am working with Joel Zook on a Department of Energy cohort for retrofitting municipal buildings. And we'll use that information, and we're working with other cities across the United States and some experts from the Department of Energy and some of their consultants. And out of that, we'll come up with an RFP or an audit of all city buildings. And then part of that will also include what we need for future vehicle charging. So this could include things like solar or HVAC improvements to meet that retrofit goal. We've also talked to Parks and Rec about making office flex space where they have their multi-purpose room where they may move some programs out, and then we would make some space in there, maybe a conference room and space for people, which would help as we continue to grow. And then we're always here to work with other departments on projects that come up. So be happy to answer any questions about facilities.
Questions?
He'll be working with the conceptual design on animal control shelter. I think Corey will get involved in that one. We have laid off in the budget this year, and another one.
Fire Station 2.
Oh, Fire Station 2. Any conceptual costs for that? Remember that one? Corey's our go-to person on that too. Brings constructional engineering management and construction management to that team.
Can you just comment on why the offices and the carpet and stuff and painting is going to be actually a year away?
I think we were wanted to get all the conference rooms done first because we're going to move people probably into a lot of those, and also trying to get away from kind of trying to hit that time when maybe school's in session to lower our prices, because a lot of these companies, that's their predominant work is schools and things like that. We saw very good prices from our last bid on, and we split that up so we're not paying, maybe a project manager, a larger construction company to oversee that. This is straight with a flooring company, which helped with cost. And it's going to be a lot of work to move people around IT, phone systems. So it's going to take a lot of coordination.
I was asking Steve last week just about why all the shuffling, and he mentioned something about having to deal with what's underneath the carpet. Is that correct? Or
Yes. Yes, we have asbestos under most of the carpet in City Hall. It was something, a mastic glue that they used when they built the building. It was not regulated at the time we did the remodel. Now it is.
so it's not tile, but there's actually a mastic
mastic glue, yes.
that's directly on the concrete
Yes,
and attached to the bottom of the carpet.
yes. Not the bottom of the carpet. So there's glue. So now we have the carpet glue over the mastic.
Yeah,
So-
so someone took out the tile to begin with, but left the mastic.
Correct. So luckily we don't have to. We worked with the DNR. We can take the carpet up because we won't disturb the mastic because the glue is still there, but we have to seal all that. So basically encapsulate the asbestos and then put down the tile because we're also switching types of glue. This is a glue that's made to stick, and then we're going to go to carpet tiles, which is releasable glue. So we would have to done a sealer anyway. So that definitely increases the time. We're probably looking at, I think we had 2 or 3 phases per floor, and it's 6 to 8 weeks that people would have to be out of their space.
Okay, any other questions? All right.
All right, thank you.
Another Corey.
That's funny you say that. With Brian refers to us as Corey Cars and Corey Cash, so we have a different
Corey Cash now.
different name.
Who's more popular?
Well, it depends on who you ask, I guess. He provides some cars though, so probably him.
Cash is good.
All right, Bill's going to hand me the remote here, so I don't have to get up. Thank you, Bill. And we're going to start at the beginning, I think.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, you're good. All right, let's see if this works. Great. All right, well, thank you. Good to see you all again. Just a brief presentation tonight on the finance department. The way that I've structured the presentation we'll get into is in 3 different categories instead of by department. I felt like highlighting some of the I guess ongoing activities in the upcoming year was probably a little more appropriate, giving finance doesn't have any giant projects typically. So we have a kind of a daily operation that continues and supports the operations of the city, but not typically big projects. So we'll kind of touch on some of those changes in the upcoming presentation. One thing to note, so this is an outline of all the programs that the finance department oversees. One item of note, debt service, we talked about on Friday. So there's not a lot of information about that on the packet. Certainly, I think we kind of delved into some of those projects. Certainly, we talked about what was funding the CIP, which is the general obligation bonds. And then economic development is one that we don't have specific staff that supports economic development. I'm sure we've talked about this before, but Steve, the city attorney, and myself support the economic development efforts. And then, of course, the other city departments support Steve and myself and Mark and those efforts. So a portion of our salaries are support that, but the other departments support Steve, myself, and Mark. So, all right, just a quick summary of our department. This is our current organizational chart. Last year when I started, everybody was new to me, and the longevity, I had no idea of our employees. So as I look at this chart now, a year later, I recognize that we have some long-term employees and some relatively new employees, which is kind of gives us a nice mix. I think there's certainly some benefit to having new employees with a new set of eyes and looking at our operations and maybe some efficiencies. I think the fear in doing that is that we don't consider the impact of the changes. And so Nancy's been a great resource. Karen Server, who manages our purchasing department or division, is a great resource. So I think the theme you'll see in these upcoming slides is that we're really looking at efficiencies, and we're trying to identify new processes and procedures without significantly impacting the organization in a negative way. So I mentioned the categories. So we have technology and efficiency, which tend to go to hand in finance, security and redundancy, also hand in hand for our department, and then just some achievements briefly at the end of the presentation. So one of the big changes in our department this year that we've been considering, I think, for a while now, is modifying the reporting requirements for our printing division. So Courtney Hinders serves as our printing guru, and as you can see in the pictures, she produces all of our documents. Much of our social media posts have her graphics incorporated into them. The demand for printing is decreasing. You'll see that in the budget pages, but the demand for graphic design services is increasing significantly. In coordinating some of those things takes additional effort between the departments, and it seemed to make sense in the upcoming budget year to transition our printing and graphic design services to Susan's team in public relations. So Susan is the primary user of Courtney's time. Of course, Courtney does a lot of printing, but really, I think the focus going on and towards the future is graphic design services and making sure that the city's appearance, as you can see, is consistent, is timely, and I think it adds a nice resource to Susan's team to help outreach in the community. So I would say that's a pretty big component of the city's, at least the finance department's budget. We've long operated a print shop. We're really transitioning that to Susan. We're willing to provide backup and support, but I think long-term, I think that's more consistent with the city's vision, and I think Steve's vision as well. So next slide. So one of the things that we've been talking about lately is how can we provide efficient communication and customer services, particularly in our utility billing area. So we, you recall, we make outbound calls, significant numbers of outbound calls to customers who have not paid their bill and are going to be disconnected. We send letters typically to notify people that they haven't paid, but we don't do a very good job, at least we felt like, coordinating our conversation before it gets to the point of posting a disconnect. And so we've really identified a system that allows us to use text messaging and auto dialing to notify people and really alleviate some of those phone calls that we haven't been able to make because we just simply don't have the time to do. What we've looked at is we identified a system that allows us to make currently outbound calls for disconnects. So that calls about 800 customers a month and tells them you're going to be disconnected in 48 hours. That's prior to posting, and really alleviates about 20 hours per month of our team making outbound calls. There's a lot of the times it's a 15-minute, 45-second, minute-and-a-half call. But when you're making 800 a month, that really turns into a significant number of hours. So we're using an auto dialer to make that call. We anticipate in the future, once we get new customers, having them opt into a text message option. So not only will we message you, hey, your bill's ready, your bill's out, available for viewing. We haven't received payment a week out. We have more options to reach out to customers before we get to the point of auto dialing and saying, you're going to be disconnected in 48 hours. So for those people who maybe just aren't on top of their billing on a regular basis, or maybe the bill got lost or they're out of town, it's just another way to coordinate some of those services with our customers and make sure they know the status of their account. So we started using that last month. Like I mentioned, we made 800 outbound calls, but the nice thing is we also made calls before we did the posting. So 48 hours before you're disconnected for non-payment, we go out and we post on your door. So our staff goes out and puts a note on your door and says you're going to be disconnected. Last week, we had 150 of those situations. So we made 150 calls to people and said, we're going to be posting in about 48 hours. We ended up, it stirred of the group, and we ended up only posting 60 instead of 150. So we're finding ways that just communicating with customers and letting them know the process of their bill is generating response and reducing staff time. So it may not seem like a lot. It's a different form of communication, but it certainly benefits us in terms of making our way out in the community for things that people just forgot. And then also allows us to give us a little bit more update of where they're at in terms of their bill status. So kind of an exciting thing for our staff to avoid making quick kind of random calls to people and getting a response back, which is even better. So The next thing we've done in our utility billing area is when you used to come into City Hall to sign up for utility service, we'd give you a paper application. You'd sit down and you'd fill it out. You'd hand it to us, our staff. We'd enter in the information. We'd hope that we would type it in correctly. And if there was an error, then we'd have to call you. So about 2 or 3 months ago, we set up this table or this counter here. The facility staff did a great job, set up 3 iPads. So now whether you're signing up online in your home or on your phone, or you're coming down to City Hall to sign up, you'll click on the iPad, you do online service orders, and you sign up, and it automatically loads into our system. So we've alleviated the paper part of it, and we're hoping to convey to customers that there's really no need for you to come down here and spend your time doing this. The form that you're going to fill out down here at City Hall is the exact same form that you're going to see at your computer. Feel free to call, feel free to contact us any other way, but the process is more efficient when we have people loading kind of their own information into the system. And of course, we're there still to help if there's a problem or if there's an issue. But when we go through those big mass transitions of changing and starting and stopping services, this just provides us more resources to do that. And it looks pretty nice. So you did a nice job. The last thing that we did for customer service here, as you recall, we started taking credit card payments. It may not seem like a big thing to you, but just last month we had 140 people pay in person with credit cards. So those are people that we otherwise would have sent away to go find another form of payment. In some instances, we could have sent them down to our cashier to make payment. Very inconvenient, somewhat costly. Takes a lot of time, unfortunately. So we're taking payments at the counter now. We're passing on the fee like we talked about. But still, it's a nice thing for customers as a form of convenience for them to be able to pay in person. The other thing we're doing is we consolidated where you make credit card payments. So for some bus passes and other forms of payments, we sent you down to our cashier. Now at the counter, we can take payment for any type of service that the city's provided. So instead of forcing people around City Hall, we're having them go directly to the customer service desk. We're providing the service there. We're taking the payment and we're sending them on our way. So just another way of making their services convenient to pay for and really efficient for our staff too. So that's what that looks like right now. The next big item for us is included in the budget is $125,000 for a reporting and a budgeting system. Nancy has been with us for a long time and does a great job on the budget, but I can tell you the last minute changes or modifications to a budget through directive from another department who's concerned about the presentation. It takes a lot of time and is prone to error. And I think there's been a number of instances in cities across the state where an error has gone unseen because it's a manual enter. Maybe you type over a number or maybe a cell gets deleted, but we're using Excel to do our work. And that's subject to the person entering in the data, our review, and us entering the information in the state system. So we believe that the funding allocated for those purposes will be beneficial. It'll create efficiencies for us. As we look at training our staff, we have a vacant analyst position right now in our budget department, and we're going to anticipate that person learning the system, relying on Nancy for implementation. And so really we're looking kind of at modernizing our budgeting and reporting system. And I think there will be efficiencies in the future. It may be a little clunky at first, but I think it's really the future. And we're just trying to get on board with some of those efficiencies that some other cities are already utilizing. So,
Corey, just out of quick curiosity, is only one person in finance enter the data, or is it something which is system-wide across all the departments, so they can enter the information in on their department, and then it just goes into a central database and populates it? So it's multi-users versus just one person. I was just curious how that works.
Yeah, maybe that's a good question, Nancy.
Well, right now, the departments enter their own budgets into our budgeting system, but for everything, we can run reports off of that. But everything that you see entered, like in the budget document, we've entered manually. And usually multiple times we enter it for our probe meetings, and then we enter it again in all of the work that links into the document. So if there's a change, it has, a lot of these, we enter them in one spot and the numbers do flow up into the document, but there's just a lot of pages that changed and maybe need to be reformatted if we make a change at the last minute. So I think what Corey and I are looking at is something that we could pull directly out of the system itself to create the document instead of us having to do it into Excel and into Word. And we just produce the document directly. out of
To
the
answer your
system.
question, all departments have access to the initial implementation. It goes through the sieving process where we have the pro team look at it. Eventually, it gets to me, and we make final decisions. We lock everybody out then. So then we make the final decisions. We make sure the decision we make is the final decision. So other people can't come in and then mess with the totals. So at the beginning, they're involved in it. Eventually, there's got to be security on it. So the very last final decisions, any movement in the budget is made at our level, and other people can't get into the system. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think my question wasn't, I didn't do a good job asking the question. For the new software that you're bringing in, that will allow the departments to go ahead and enter their own information. It gets aggregated, and like you said, you got security, you lock it out, so you're not having to enter their information all the time.
Right. Yeah. It should work like that, and they should still be able to do like their highlight pages and things directly into the system. Right now, we do it in Teams, and then we pull it out and put it into Word, which links it into the document. So it's a very manual process, and the formatting changes. So we're hoping that this would streamline the whole process.
Thank you.
And I should say, it's not just for budgeting. Our accounting system provides the annual financial report, and that, we've had some delays with that in the past. This would expedite that process by kind of creating a format that exists and linking and tying the cells to the document. So that's really the intent. Okay, on to security and redundancy. So I wanted to put a picture of our fiber map on this picture for the city, but our IT staff said that probably not a great idea. So this is a very generic, picture of what a fiber ring looks like. So in the upcoming budget year, we anticipate, closing our fiber ring. So what that means is, as part of partnership with the Intelligent Transportation System, we'll also lay some fiber, which will connect us fully to a ring. So if one area gets cut, for instance, in core building 2 and core building 4, the traffic would be rerouted. And so really that's just a redundancy thing that creates security for the system, make sure that we're minimizing effects on user in the event that something occurs. But an important project and a big project for us. I think we've been working on some other layer 3 options in terms of technology for efficiencies and security, but that will be a big project and a big enhancement of the city's network. I should say the other things that we've done in security over the past year is we've implemented multi-factor authentication. You probably have seen that on some of your emails. That was a big project that certainly helps secure the network. And I would say the second thing is largely related to the end users as well, is we eliminated much of the city's administrative rights. So many of the computers across the city are now limited in what they can install on their computers, where they can go. That was a recommendation by our staff and also our insurance provider. So we take those things seriously and have been looking for ways to improve the security of the network. The last thing I would say is that enhances security is we hired a network administrator. So that position had been vacant for a very long time. And we were able to hire a network administrator who is focusing on security and securing the network. So I feel good about where we are at compared to where we've been, and certainly looking forward to the enhancements of the network in the next couple of years. Let's see. This is Ken McDaniels. He's our new network administrator, like I mentioned. One of the big projects that we have included in the budget is a pilot project for the phone system. So we use a standard phone system. You may recall last fall we had a phone outage for too long, I would say. The big impact is on city operations because we couldn't take inbound calls. The bigger impact is it affected the non-emergency dispatch line, and particularly over a Friday evening. That would have raised some concerns. And so the concern was that it would flood the 911 line if they weren't able to be reached. We found some resolutions through some redundancy and modifications to the existing copper lines, but I think it certainly reiterated the importance of switching to a VoIP system and securing our fiber ring. So if we have a fiber cut or if we have a copper line cut, as it would be now, we don't lose the entirety of the network, and we're still able to make inbound and outbound calls. So That's a pretty big project. I think we're going to focus on our customer service utility building area as the pilot project, but certainly something that is on the radar going forward. So positive pay is something that we have a partnership with our bank for. Positive pay is a way to alleviate financial fraud. So we send out checks, somebody intercepts the check. What positive pay does is it checks the check number and checks the dollar amount to make sure that that's a valid check. That's a great idea. The problem was last summer, we had a check that was intercepted. The check number was correct. The dollar amount was the same. They changed the vendor ID. So we've been working with our financial institution to implement a way to also check who the check was issued to. So another way to just further secure our transfer of funds to vendors. We expect that to be implemented in the next couple of months, but it's $5,000 now that we had to challenge and work through with our financial institution, but who's to say that a larger check wouldn't have been intercepted? So just another way to secure the way that we're sending money to our vendors.
And on that, so I'm a huge fan of positive pay. We've been doing this for probably 10 years.
Probably, yeah.
How long has the city been using positive pay?
That's a good question. I'd have to ask Roger Weisskopf, but it's been a while now. We've been sending them the file. So we just this was just the first time that we've had an incident that probably raised awareness of the lack of security related to the vendor.
Yeah, I appreciate this. We can't afford not to use these kind of systems.
The problem is the problem is when we have a check that's cashed by somebody else and the vendor's not paid, whose responsibility is it? And fortunately, we didn't get there in this last case. But that was our concern: is our vendor didn't get paid. We sent the check's intercepted. I don't know the liability of that. We didn't make it that far, but that was always our concern.
So in the bank that fraudulently cashed a check, aren't they responsible for? I mean, it just seems to me that.
That's a great question. We're glad we didn't get that far.
You didn't get.
We didn't get that far.
Oh.
But it certainly raised the concern of how do we mitigate it going forward.
Yeah, so positive pay, every day they'll upload the checks into the system.
The city will upload.
City uploads the checks. And so there shouldn't be a way for someone to deposit a check that the city issues unless everything matches. So it's a fantastic program. So, and these efforts, we feel like we're playing whack-a-mole all the time. These efforts, the bad guys are out there trying to find novel ways for us to, we're getting emails that look like legitimate emails from lenders or banks that everything looks legitimate. And it just takes one of those and then we've compromised our security. So that's on a small scale compared to what you're dealing with. So thanks for your diligence in that.
We expect it to be, like I said, we got a couple of months before implementation because we have to work with our financial institution, and there'll be a little bit of an extra fee on that. But, we think it's worth it at this point. So. Just the last item, just a couple of achievements. So on the far left is Kate Berbaglia. She was awarded a suggestion award. So Kate's part of our IT team, and she helps process the bills for the phone line. You may recall Kate recognized that there was some lines, telephone lines that she had some questions about. Started digging a little bit deeper. Found out that we had about $24,000 a year that we were paying in phone lines that had just been unused in the past. And so Kate went digging after that. It took her some time, but those are the type of bills that, we're really encouraged that our staff's looking at and asking questions about. So a pretty big achievement for her. We appreciate all her efforts. There's a lot of people besides Kate that went into that project. But it's a great recognition for her. On the far, on the right is Amanda Moore. She's of our purchasing department. Amanda is very active in the IPPA, which is the Purchasing Procurement Association. Amanda received award for her involvement in updating the website. So we're really thrilled that our employees are participating in those organizations that provide them development opportunities like that. And then finally, last slide here. Each year, we've received, I guess, last past year, we've received 2 awards, one from the GFOA for our annual financial report, and then for the budget award. The one thing that I would say is Nancy does a great job, and she's done a great job for a long time, and receives the award. Our audit's been failing a little bit in terms of the timing. We have some new staff who's working through our systems, working through government financial statements, and so we've had some delays in our audits. I'm really happy and thrilled to say that hopefully at the February 13th meeting, we'll present our annual audit for the year, which is I'd say a 3 or 4 month improvement over last year, and probably at least a 12-month improvement from the year prior. So may not seem like a lot to everybody who reads thoroughly, I'm sure, our annual audit report, but it certainly does prevent issues that we discover during the audit process for continue to be an issue in the future. So they've done a great job. Very appreciative of that. And even I think our auditors recognize the work that they're putting in and the development they've had in the last few years. So, and that doesn't mean that we don't believe that Nancy's also doing a great job. Nancy's just been doing a great job for a long time. So I think that's it. That's all we have. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Yes, regarding the audit, I got a call every year. I get a call from the auditor asking if know of any misdeeds or things are going on. They have to do that, but the gentleman who's assigned to our account was highly complimentary of one, just the fact that the audits are virtually without, they take no exception. There's minor tweaks. They said they got to do to classify a different check somewhere or whatever, but also the time, the time reduction and getting things done more quickly. He was very positive and very complimentary. So good job.
Corey, do we use the same firm to do the audit each year, or does that switch out?
So we do. We issued an RFP last year. We just entered into a new 3-year agreement. We've been using the same firm for a number of different years. The thing is, the firm is large enough that they alternate partners. So I think somebody in St. Louis reviewed our audit this time. Some of the staff within the department, I think out of Dubuque, is that right? Does the initial work, but then the audit is reviewed throughout their organization at different locations. So that's typically where we get a lot of questions, is once it's out of the hands of our, I guess, local auditor maybe, but into the hands of somebody in the region who's a different principal.
I think there's value in having different sets of eyes conduct the audit rather than the same people every year.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Corey, can you go back all the way to the beginning where you had the little text message slide?
Yeah.
Oh, you just passed it.
Did it? Oh, wait, well, there you go.
I attended the ISU Wellness Wellbeing Symposium that occurred on Friday and was in a session talking about suicide intervention. And one of the things that surprised me, I learned in that session, was that we have students who are not paying their bills, and so they're being thrown out of their residence accommodation. And I mentioned the fact that we do have utility situations sometimes where people have not been paying.
Yeah.
And I assume some of those people are probably students, simply because it's probably, when you don't have a lot of money, it's a good chance you might not be paying. But what struck me was the people who work with those students who are in such despair had no idea how to contact the city to help the student to set up a payment plan or something. It was just, we don't know what to do. These students are ready to end their lives because this is just one more thing.
Sure.
So I wanted to go back to this slide because I knew it had the number on it.
Yes.
That people can call, which is 515-239-5120. Where does that number go when people call to straighten out their utility payments?
That number would go to our utility customer service staff that sit at the entryway to the city hall on the side of the building there. So I think the counter at the very top is typically where you would pay in person, but there's a few employees that sit at the lower counter that would, in all likelihood, take that call.
So I'm making a point of this just in case somebody's watching.
Sure.
But I wonder if there is a means for us to be using some of the structures that ISU has in place for getting in touch with students who may be in those non-payment situations. Apparently, they do have a safety committee that is concerned about student mental health and well-being, and this seems related to that, which was somewhat surprising to me. So it's only, if we're going to move to texting as a means of contacting people, it may be worth seeing whether there's a means for Iowa State to also help with distributing information to student customers.
Yeah, I think that's a great perspective. I think, we're oftentimes when people are disconnected, it's because they don't reach out for help, or they don't reach out and have a discussion about how we can make sure that they're not going to be disconnected. Obviously, you reach a point sometimes after typically several months where we've worked with the agencies to identify solutions, but that's typically the case, is there's just a non-response. And I know that sometimes people are nervous about probably talking to our customer service staff, but we do everything we can to make sure that the power stays on. We work with agencies, we reach out on their behalf, we provide direction. And so, I think anything that we can do to partner with an organization to help facilitate communication, we're more, we'd be thrilled to help with that.
Well, I know that they are trying to make as many inroads as possible to remove those kinds of life stressors that may be the straw that breaks the camel's back when it comes to some students and their success at Iowa State. So.
That's a really interesting observation. I appreciate you bringing that up. And the question, not question, but maybe a point being is to inform those who may be talking to individuals that might be struggling. You may have a situation that the more you can be helpful, and or even how you phrase a text, or even a hang tag that would try and communicate, we're here to try and help. If there's a need for a payment plan, please reach out, but we need to make you aware that this action is going to be occurring. And then the other question is, do you think it'd be helpful for someone from Iowa State to talk to Corey or vice versa to kind of explore what else might be able to be, I'm not saying to relax the requirements, but are there ways to try and say, okay, help us understand how we can be more aware of this and what can we do to reach out? I don't know. It's fascinating. Thank you for reading that.
I'm going to be emailing the team that did the session that I was in, because they asked me what the best way for them to handle this would be. So I'm going to email them, let them know about the new text system, but also I can give them Corey's information and just let them know that I mentioned this. And those are people who are working with student counseling and the safety team. So I don't have their names offhand. I just know their first names, which doesn't help you very much. But I will let them know that they should reach out to you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I just had one. I had one question about something that I saw on the agenda on the website that I didn't catch what page it was on, so my notes are incomplete.
Oh, sure.
And so I was curious. There's a line on there about under the finance section about FEMA/disaster relief. Is that on a particular page I could refer to?
I think we took it out of so we've completed our FEMA funding for disaster relief. I don't think it's in the book anymore.
It's not a budget book. There's still, because there were no expenses this year, which is what triggers it being in the budget part. But in the fund pages, we talked about last Friday, there was a separate fund for the COVID FEMA funding we received and for the derecho funding, because we had to do some transfers to close those funds out this year.
But in terms of expenses, I could write zero.
Zero, yes.
Thank you. Okay. Perfect. Notes complete now.
Yep.
All right. Anything else? Thanks, Corey. Thanks, Nancy.
Thank you.
All right. So we come to the end of the presentations tonight, and tomorrow night we continue on with Parks and Recreation and Transportation and Utilities and Public Safety. So with that, we have no dispositions of communications to council, so we'll go to council comments, and Robin, we'll start with you tonight.
I might confer with Steve before I make a
Certainly.
memo for
Sure.
a motion, but maybe tomorrow,
Sure, yeah.
or in the near future, I might do.
Yeah, or even next Tuesday night too.
Yeah,
But Up
exactly.
to you.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Nita?
Just appreciate all the hard work again. So thank you all.
Yes, thank you.
Nothing, thanks.
Yeah, I want to thank staff because this is always the best part of the year for us to get an overview.
Yep.
But I would also just say that I may not be here tomorrow because I will be teaching, and I don't want my constituents to think that I'm just bailing out on a budget hearing. But I will be here if I can.
All right. Very good. With that, entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move adjourn.
Moved and seconded. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Have a good evening.